The one place where you are actually going to find the blue ass water that's on everyone's YouTube.
You're wrong.
That's an incredibly fascinating dairy industry going on in Cuba.
3 words to think about when you think of the coast, the mountains, and the jungle.
And finishing it off is probably my biggest bucket list place ever, which is...
What is up? Welcome to a brand new series on my channel. I have my co-host here with me, Davis, who many of you know. Say hi, Davis.
Hi, Davis.
Basically, we're doing a travel series on this channel. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're doing the top 10 under the radar destinations or countries to travel to in 2020. Obviously, this is subjective, but we are, absolute travel experts. So even though it's subjective, everything we say is absolute factual and 100% true. And we know everything we're talking about. What we did is we divided it. So I got the Western Hemisphere, Davis got the Eastern Hemisphere. So that's the basic setup of it. I'm gonna do 5, Davis is gonna do 5. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so we have one other twist on it. So we each had 5 countries, but one of them was picked for us via a random generator. We're gonna try to slide it into our top 5 and do it justice as best we can. And then at the very end of it, the other person will try to guess what country you had randomly generated for you.
So just jumping into it, number 10, we're going with Cuba. Starting it off in the Caribbean. You guys probably already know Havana, super popular. You've seen pictures of the cars from the 1960s, the historic, colorful landscape, that kind of stuff. It is more expensive. There's like a second kind of currency there just for tourists, so it is more expensive. But really, the hidden gem of Cuba, the Vinales Valley. Looking at pictures, it almost reminded me of Southeast Asia. It's got these limestone mountains and hills. There's so much hiking and caving and even rock climbing you can do there. Also, what's awesome, because it's rural Cuba, there's a bunch of farmland, so you can take tours and learn more about the coffee industry, the tobacco industry. So you can learn a lot from the local people there.
So for number 9, I'm gonna start it off with one that could arguably be a number 1 on anyone else's list, and that's Indonesia. So Indonesia is the one place where you are actually gonna find the blue ass water that's on everyone's YouTube.
Because we're going to Bali, baby!
Yeah. So for this specific note that I have listed is we are going to exempt Bali from this, because I think the rest of Indonesia absolutely outshines Bali. Everyone thinks of for Indonesia is that the really blue water, scuba diving, the incredible beaches, but something that gets left out are those natural giant green limestone mountains. And then a really big kind of reason why so many people go to Indonesia is the cost. You are not going to get to Asia for cheap. There's no budget airline across the world. So that is another reason why you should be trying to spend as much time in Indonesia as possible. The more time you're spending there, the less percentage of your total expenditure is going to be for international travel.
All right, number 8. This is actually somewhere that I haven't been, but Davis has been there.
Ooh.
Morocco, baby. I mean, the 2 main cities you're gonna want to visit are Marrakesh and Fez. They're most well known for their very vibrant and chaotic markets, but that's kind of the beauty in it of just getting lost in the mayhem, so to speak. Obviously, you have the Sahara Desert, which you can go desert camping, which is obviously sick. You're gonna see amazing stars. You're gonna be in this totally different landscape. Davis will be the first to tell you that the ride into the desert is not the most pleasant one. You have the desert, but it's also along the coast, so you can even spend some time on the beaches there. If you're into surfing, there's surfing there. You can go more relaxed. There's these local spas in different cities. Or if you want to ball it even more, they have hot air balloon rides, which you've probably seen pictures of. For hiking, you have the High Atlas Mountains and the Todra Gorge, which I may not be saying that right, but honestly, when I looked up pictures of this, it reminded me of Zion. Very different than other countries in Africa, but special nonetheless. So yeah, that takes our number 8 spot. Davis, do you have anything to add? Did I do it justice? I don't know. I haven't been there.
I think you did. I think quick hitters for Morocco. You get to see that Middle Eastern culture, even though you're on the continent of Africa. And Morocco has such an incredible geography of it's so diverse. What number are we on? 7?
7.
Alright, I'm about to recommend one of the most expensive places that I would recommend, Norway. Getting to Norway isn't as expensive as you might think. It is a European country after all. Flights between there, pretty decent. It is a vastly different experience whether you go in the summer or the winter. So in the winter, you're going to be kind of up in that Lapland area, which is similar to what you'd see in Finland or Sweden. And you're going to be chasing those northern lights. You're going to be in your little igloo with the sky roof. And then in the summer, you're most likely going to be up in Lofoten, checking out the fjords. The focus for a lot of European countries is kind of the history, the architecture. And you're going to see really unique Scandinavian architecture in Norway. But that's not why you're going to Norway. The one X factor I have for Norway is if you have the time and the resources, the islands of Svalbard. It's an absolute bucket list item. So few people get to go there. We know somebody. Bad Detective Billy has been to Svalbard. I've seen some photos from his adventures there.
Number 6, we got Portugal. Obviously, Spain gets a lot more hype, but Portugal is kind of under the radar. Obviously, there's more popular destinations you probably heard of, like Lisbon, very European kind of city, right on the water. Everyone raves about the food. There's plenty to do in the south as well, like the Faro region. Cliffs, caves, ocean adventures, beautiful beaches. that's definitely, you know, more luxurious, but plenty to see and do there. But a lot of what's amazing in Portugal is honestly in the north, which not as many people go and visit. The hidden gem, it's called Porto. You might have seen pictures of like the famous bridge that's there. It kind of connects these two cities. Porto's on one side, but it's basically like just this amazing like little city vibe, but it's like in the mountains and it almost looks castle-y, so it's got that kind of like interesting juxtaposition. Amazing food, very like quaint culture, like pretty quiet, pretty slow, but it's just like looks like such a cool vibe, and the views are just like absolutely unreal. And then not too far from there, even farther north, is an amazing national park that actually like goes into Spain, so you're kind of on the border there, which is cool in and of itself.
So for number 5, Justin just said he thinks it's going to be in sub-Saharan Africa, and he is correct. It's Malawi. So I picked Malawi because I think it has so many of the other keynotes of other countries, but it has all of them. So you have that real genuine East African culture and experience. It has the safaris that you'll see in Kenya and Tanzania. Another highlight of Malawi is Lake Malawi. It is one of the most beautiful lakes in the entire world, and that is going to be kind of the center of where you're traveling to and from. Traveling in sub-Saharan Africa isn't as inexpensive as you might think it is. The international flights are kind of a little bit more expensive than some other places, and you do have that national park fee when you're going on the safaris. When you're there though, absolutely you have to go on a safari, so that's just the cost that you're going to have to eat. And then accommodation, food, transportation, that's going to be a little bit cheaper than a lot of areas. So it balances itself out a little bit. And I think another huge part of Malawi is the ease of getting to other countries to see what they have to offer.
All right, number 4, the United States. Crickets? Yeah, okay. So obviously, I mean, it's not under the radar in like the general senses, but especially if you live here already, across the board, no matter where you are, there's national parks and state parks that are like unreal. But in terms of if you're just like going on a specific trip and you want to set something up, honestly, I would do what Davis did last fall and take a road trip. I would say start in Utah. Southern Utah is like otherworldly. Then you just got to work your way to California and spend kind of as much time as you can in California. Literally, it's unfair. There's so much to do in Cali. LA is a huge hotspot, but like if you're doing a road trip, it's kind of out of your way. So there's plenty to do and see, like going up the coast, and that's kind of what I would do. So start in Utah, go to California, then work your way to the coast. Go up Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1. Then from there, make your way to the Pacific Northwest, where I currently am. One of the most unique places in the entire world. Some of the just best hiking in the entire world. Cool cities too. Use what you already have. You don't have to get a passport. Flights can be cheap. You can use all those kind of like travel hacks to get around. You can really make the most of it. And like I said, if you're road tripping, you can save money and see a ton. That's my number 4 spot, the United States. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Dude, I've been there. And
yeah?
It's good. All right, Justin, can I get a Mazel Tov?
Oh.
We're talking about Israel for number 3? Number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah, so Israel, a lot of people know of it for traveling through Birthright, which is a really great way to see the country for more or less for free. So Israel has that main hub of Jerusalem where you absolutely have to visit. But there is other things to see. A lot of people post all these gorgeous photos from the Dead Sea. They got their mud baths going on. It's definitely worth checking out. And then there are other cities. It's not just Jerusalem in Israel. We mentioned with Morocco, this is another place where you get to see that Middle Eastern culture because not many people travel to countries that are similar to that. So if you get the opportunity, definitely check out Israel, get to know other cultures, get to see some of the history behind it.
That's a good pick. I definitely wouldn't have guessed that you would pick that. At our number 2 spot, we have Ecuador. Oh yeah. So Davis and I are planning on going later this year. 3 words to think about when you think of Ecuador: the coast, the mountains,
location,
and the jungle. I mean, yeah, basically. You have all 3 of these things all within a pretty small country that you can see a lot of in a pretty short amount of time. Quito, the capital city, there's so much to see. But obviously, since you're in the region, you have to experience the Amazon. You can go on guided tours, which is probably the best way to do it. You know, give back to the local economy. Also, you have a very famous mountain there called Cotopaxi, so you can like climb that if you're more into like the technical climbing, more adventurous climbing, but there's plenty of like that whole range. Has a ton of cool hikes and trails and treks you can do. There's a really cool way to travel through Ecuador, and it's called the Devil's Nose Train. It's one of the most apparently dangerous train rides you can take, but also one of the most breathtaking. So it kind of feels like you're gonna be like falling off this mountain the whole time. You can take it just as like a 2-hour ride from one city to another, or you can take it all the way down south to some of the more like rural areas and you can see like Incan ruins. If you want to spend some time there, you want to see it all, that's what you got to do as well. It's part of the region. Most of Ecuador is actually really cheap to travel through, which is nice. But on the other end of the spectrum, you can go to the Galapagos Islands. You can kind of do some of everything in Ecuador. That's why it's my number 1 pick. Obviously, very subjective, but I'm gonna be there soon. I'm very excited to go.
So China is my number 1 pick. I think it is the most underrated location country for travel. Tangshan, which is an incredible national park. You are never gonna see anything like this anywhere else. Beijing. obvious. You have to see it. The Forbidden Palace is probably the highlight there. Of course, there's the Great Wall of China. The south of China actually closely resembles what you'd see in Vietnam or northern Thailand. Hong Kong, which deserves a trip in and of itself. The Terracotta Army, Chengdu for pandas, and then two of my favorites for off the beaten path, Feng Huang Ancient Town. So picture that traditional Chinese architecture and then put that on stilts over the water, and you have a bunch of wooden boats paddling through this river that it overlays. Yeah, and finishing it off is probably my biggest bucket list place ever, which is Lhasa. It is the capital of Old Tibet. It's where the Dalai Lama famously lived when China took over Tibet as a country. But it's this incredible palace that has been preserved perfectly from the 1950s and 60s, and it's massively important historically and to the religion of Buddhism. But just the sheer quantity of places that you can go, the fact that you can spend months there and still not even scratch the surface, is why I picked China at number 1.
That's our top 10. So we have one more thing to do.
I've not got a clue which you chose.
Really?
I think this one would have gone under the radar for you. I think it's Portugal.
You're wrong.
No, it's
I
USA.
chose Portugal. No.
Ah!
Cuba, bro. It was Cuba.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, I think Cuba's a great pick. I think if you had a 5th spot, you should have picked Cuba anyway.
So here's the thing. You definitely would have picked China. Norway, I'm a little concerned about. Malawi, I mean, you definitely picked that. Let's be honest. Like, we talked about it. Israel's the wild card for me. I don't know what to make of that. I think it was a great pick, though. I think you sold it regardless. Israel.
Ah!